we are right on time today, which is quite good for me because I'm usually not on time today. But we are. So we are going to get going because I don't have as normal on my Tuesday ones, I don't have as much time as I do on my Saturdays. So we're going to jump right in and talk. I was checking my audio. Yeah, everything's good. We're going to talk about a phrase that kind of came to me while I was blowing out my hair this morning, which was, if you don't want the answer, why do we ask the question if we're ever going to be happy with the answer? And I'm going to take this phrase and try to turn it into a topic today, and I'm not really sure how yet, but we're just going to go with it. We're going to explore this phrase a little bit to see what's in it for us. What's the gem in this phrase for us today? I don't know if I know yet. So, okay. Oh, in the chat, I will open the chat. I usually wait until I've given a talk for about 22 minutes, 25 minutes, and then I'll open up the chat. Because I want to make sure I get a couple topics out before the chat comes in, because it does bother me a tad sometimes. It kicks me off my frequency sometimes, so if I'm on one train of thought, it can just kind of derail me a little bit. It's the same thing with having people on our energy field. We talk a lot about that. Having people on a chat, it does the same thing. It just can kind of throw you off a little bit. And when I'm trying to get a topic out, I like to just get the topic out and then go from there. Okay, so why do we ask the question if we don't like the answer? And I would also flip that and say, why do we want the answer if we're never going to be happy with the answer? If we're never really going to be happy with the answer we get, then why do we want the answer? Why is it so important for us to get the answer when we're never going to be happy with the answer? Why are we never happy with our answer? Why do we never like the answer? And we can take that to anything. If you go to any TV show and get to the end of the TV show, you're never going to like how it ends. You know, it's never going to end the way we wanted it to. Goes into the adage, nothing ever is what we thought it was going to be. Nothing works out the way we thought it was going to work out. Why do we never like the answer? And our human consciousness, we're never going to like the answer. I don't care what the question is. We're never going to like the answer we get. And even if we do like it temporarily, it's because we got something out of the answer. It was not because the answer was so profound. Because in a human consciousness, there are no profound answers. Nothing is deep. You know, everything is very superficial. So the only reason for a time we will like the answer is because it was the answer that was going to get us the most of whatever we thought we wanted. It had our get in it. You know, it had something in it that we really wanted. So we're like, okay, I'm going to go with that. You know, I'm going to go with that because I get the most out of that. Whether that be, oh, I got the job, you know, oh, I got the person I wanted, oh, I got the marriage proposal I wanted, everything I wanted, I got because of that answer. But the answer itself is never what we thought it was going to be as it continues to unravel. Because the human can only see one perspective of the answer. It cannot see a zillion other answers. And we've chatted a little bit about this before, how as your consciousness expands, you're going to see more of your energy field, so you're going to see more answers. It's not just going to be one answer anymore. That's why my videos got longer over time, because I was able to see more answers and not just one. And it's not really an answer. It's going to more be like I'm able to see more, what's the word I want to use? I'm able to see more reasons why. Explaining things in different ways, explaining different ways that things go down. I'm able to see more of that. And the more I can see of that, all of a sudden, I can give more perspectives. You know, I can give more answers on why it is, why that is, why did it work out that way? Why did it have to work out that way? But when we're in our human consciousness, we can't see all those answers. We can only see the one in front of us. So we're not happy with that answer over time because it doesn't yield us what we really want. Because our human's never going to get what it really wants. Because it doesn't want human things. Even though it thinks it wants human things. So that is one of the reasons we start looking for other things. Because we're never satisfied with anything. The human is always going to want the next thing because it's trying to fill the holes of an internal disconnection with everything outside. So it surrounds itself with a lot of drama, a lot of other people's stuff, because it doesn't like to focus on its own stuff. it wants to focus on everybody else's stuff. I don't want to focus on what I got going on over here. I want to focus on what's going on over there. Don't worry about the shit in my yard. I want to talk about all the stuff going on with you. Because we don't want to focus on ourselves. And that's why a lot of us have to, you have to get removed from human realities. And COVID was a big showing of how that could happen on a global scale, how people got torn out of them, people got removed from them because they were not going to go willingly. Because they had too much story around why they had to have the thing, why they had to have the job, why they had to be in the office, why they had to visit their family, why they had to do all these things that were kind of obligations in a sense. Because the minute the human's life was threatened by something, all of a sudden they could give all that shit up. It didn't care what it was. It would close the door on its own mother if it thought, wait a minute, this could be dangerous to me. Because the human ego is always going for self-preservation. So if we have any other story about what we're doing when we're in our human programming, we are just lying to ourselves to make ourselves feel better. We're all coming from a selfish place in that aspect because it doesn't know another way. The human aspect doesn't know another way. It's there to help you survive. I mean, that's why it's created. It wasn't created for any profound thing. It was created to keep you in a lower state of consciousness. It was created to keep you shut off. It was created to keep you in that isolation. Now, we also agreed to do that. We agreed to enter in. If you're really into the galactic phases or the galactic, I'm going to say, I was going to say story, but I don't know if I want to use the word story. The realities that get created around our galactic aspects, they would call it like a human experiment, right? It was a human experiment. Everyone's working off galactic debt. We're kind of stuck on Earth in this kind of simulation. Now, if you go with that, and some people I talk to that are very galactic and really tuned into their galactic aspects, whether they know it or not, a lot of them don't know it, some do know it. I find more men tune into the galactic aspects easier because they're very detached aspects. So a lot of men will go toward galactic aspects first, and those are the ones they really mesh with, and not the soul aspects, because when you do the soul aspects, you have to kind of dig in deep inside yourself. And that is not a fun journey because we have to clear so much stuff. And the galactic aspects are a funner part of the journey because they're more about galactic knowledge and galactic remembrances and pure power and a disconnect. Because the galactic aspects they don't have a love for humanity, right? It doesn't care. So when you're in these aspects, you kind of just don't care. And there's a disconnect to that. But you can't keep that disconnect once you do the soul work, because that's where you gain your love for humanity. So you kind of see why they have to go hand in hand. And some people would say, why do we need the galactic ones? There's so much galactic intelligence that comes through, galactic remembrances that come through. There's so many ways that it can help you bring a lot of your power through. A lot of those galactic aspects are very no nonsense, they're very powerful. You'll see people talking about a Sirian aspect that's very powerful and very no nonsense. It's kind of like the flip of the God aspect when you're in your soul aspect. So you're either going to go up and then down or in, or you're going to go in and then up. Now, I went in and then up, and a lot of people will do that, but there are still people that go the other way. But I will find that if someone's setting in an aspect and it's kind of a offshoot to their human aspect, I'll see it more in men than women normally. It's another aspect a man will flash besides, or anyone to me that has a really strong masculine energy. So maybe I should put it like that, because the sex of a person doesn't matter. We all have feminine and masculine energy, but if I see a lot of masculine energy, they normally will, if they're going to bebop in between an aspect and don't know they're doing it, galactic might not be their main aspect, but they're going to bebop into that aspect because it's a detachment there. And they can compartmentalize a lot of stuff and kind of stay in those aspects. And a lot of people also will do a head shave in a lot of those aspects. A lot of people that go through chemo lose their hair. Chemo will kill off a lot of it kills off our human cells, right? So it's going to kill off your human DNA in a sense, which leads more into your galactic DNA. So you start to look more like a galactic. So anytime I see anyone that is in that phase, if it's a man, they usually have shaved head. Even women who haven't gone through chemo will sometimes do the shaved head. It's a lot more prevalent now, I think, than it used to be. But a lot of the chemo journey for a lot of people is to bring through those galactic aspects. Because when you kill off a majority of your human cells, then you have a chance to reprogram it to something else, right? You have a chance to reprogram it to higher consciousness DNA to unlock that consciousness. Unless you go right back into the human stuff again. And then you're kind of back in the loop. And next time it might not be that's going to give you a hard reset. It might be something else. So I say that sometimes some people are a little off-put when you talk about medical stuff, but there's a reason for everything. There's a reason we go through everything. There's a reason why certain things have been put in place. Certain things are remembered. Certain things are remembered by technology is invented, or I'm going to say it's going to be remembered. People are going to get a lot of stuff from their dream state. A lot of the big inventions have been invented in the dream state because as people are connecting into different timelines, people are connecting into different parts of themselves. People are connecting into what is going to happen later on. A lot of our big inventions have been galactic intelligence, and they kind of hinted at this a little bit, which I think is kind of funny in what was the Eternals, a Marvel movie where the galactic, I can't remember what he was. He wasn't maybe he was a celestial. I don't think he was. I can't remember what he was. Spoiler, they ended up to all be androids, but he was kind of feeding that technology through. And in a sense, that's what happens. A lot of times we'll watch movies and things seem kind of crazy, but all these patterns come from something. These ideas come from somewhere. They're not just, they just thought of it. They just don't think of it. If you can think of it, it's happening somewhere. So a lot of the stuff that comes through, like we get into all the multidimensional multiverses in all the movies now. And even in all the TV shows now, a lot of media is just really embracing that concept because it's an awakening. It's activating that multidimensional DNA within you. It's a way to activate that remembrances within yourself. And when we immerse ourselves in that, that's what's going on. It's not a coincidence. Everyone remembers sort of the same stuff at the same time. But a lot of our biggest inventions have been through that type of remembrance, as galactic intelligence kind of feeding through for us to invent all this stuff and to push humanity forward in a sense, and sometimes destroy different segments of humanity because of the destructive nature of the human ego and what it will do with certain things, and to kind of watch as it all kind of starts to implode because there is no connection there. And when you don't have the connection there, everything starts to unravel from there because you start to reach out for different things. Now, that's a little bit off topic, but I felt like I want to hit on that because when you're really, and a lot of people I meet in a galactic aspect, they don't know that's what they're in. They'll just say, like, I had one person come up to me and we were talking about this type of stuff, and he said, I feel pretty guilty. So he had all this story around why he didn't have any connection to humanity at all. And it just didn't matter to him. He said it never had mattered to him. And I was like, that's fine. You're just in a very galactic phase. You're just in a galactic aspect. But eventually you'll have to go the other way because you can't have one without the other for long. Normally you'll bebop into different ones after a time. Like for me, I did the soul aspects for maybe the first 3 to 4 years. Then I got into galactic. Now I bebop into both. I might have had a year where I was really into galactic. Though it's still not my strongest draw, but I can see the importance in it. You see some people who do this type of stuff, and they always talk about the stars. They always talk about astrology. They always talk about all of those types of things. They're really into the space stuff when it comes to different energies and different aspects. And they're just really into that phase. That was not my information to bring through in a sense. But I do like to touch on it because when I meet galactics, strong galactics, it's always really attached to that strong masculine energy. Whether it comes to a male or female, it doesn't matter. But normally when I see it, it'll come through. It'll come through that masculine energy. And it's just kind of funny to watch because people don't realize what they're doing. One of the greatest things about consciousness is you can see when people bebop into different aspects. When people go galactic, when all of a sudden they go back into their soul aspect, and then they hit this aspect again, and now they go here again. And they're always bebopping around. And that's kind of the fun of it. I know we don't talk as much as we should about the fun of it, but those are some of the fun things when you can watch people kind of bebop in. But when we talk about never liking the answer we get, and why we never like the answer we get, it's because it's not the right answer. And I'm going to say that because it's not the real answer. Maybe that's what I would rather phrase that at. It's not the real answer. The real answer is not the human answer. And if a human aspect is giving you the answer, that's not the answer. That's why we don't like it. Or if we do like it, we don't like it for long. Very few answers you've gotten you probably liked for a long period of time before all of a sudden now you want a different answer. Or, boy, I really wanted this job till I got it, and now I'm here, and wow, it's really not what I thought it would be. This is not working out the way I thought it was going to work out. I thought this was going to be different. I thought it was going to be here. I thought it was going to be there, because we can imagine something in a different frequency than our body is setting in. So the minute we say, why isn't it ever what it seemed to be? It's never worked out the way I thought it was going to work out, because we're looking at it from a different frequency. We can imagine in a higher frequency. We can dream about stuff in a different frequency. When we disconnect the mind, in a sense, and we just daydream about how something's going to turn out, right? Or we just kind of have this, play out these fantasies of what we think something's going to be. We do that because we disconnect, in a sense, from the human brain. We disconnect from that part of us is going to say, no, that really can't happen that way, or whatever the belief is around it for that time. When we dream about something, we'll dream about it a different way. But our body doesn't set in the frequency for it to play out that way. And that's where we don't understand. Why is it never the way we thought it was going to be? Why isn't the answer the one I really wanted? Because our body is not setting in that frequency. Our body is always going to be setting in a lower frequency than what our consciousness can achieve. Okay, so your consciousness is always going to be pulling your body up into a different frequency. But it can't do that if it's kind of stuck, in a sense, in that lower frequency of the body. The body's going to start setting at around a 300 frequency. So you're trying to get it to where, if you're talking about a ninth dimensional reality, you're trying to get it to the nines, where your consciousness in that point could be in the thousands. It doesn't really matter. That's infinite. There's only so much you're going to be able to anchor in because of the constraints of the human body and what it's going to be able to actually kind of absorb in. But that's why we don't like the answers. That's why they don't feel like they're really the real answer, because in a sense they're not. Now, they have a certain amount of validity in each consciousness. If we could just go back to, the chemo example I gave earlier. In a third dimensional consciousness, the reason for chemo is totally different than I would see it from I'm going to just make a number up, from a higher, from eighth, ninth dimensional consciousness. I'm going to see it a totally different way than someone in a third dimensional consciousness would see it. It's not that answer is wrong. It's not a real soul answer in a sense. It's a human answer to something. It's a human answer to putting a microscope on something and seeing one thing when there's really something else going on. But because it doesn't have the consciousness to see that, it only sees it from one space. It's only going to see it from that one perspective. It's only going to see that one answer. And that's not going to be the only one. And because it's not the only one, it doesn't feel like it's the real one. Because there's really an infinite amount of them. And there's never going to be one you're going to be, yeah, that's right. It's going to be, that's the one I can see right now that's the strongest one, but give me 5 minutes and I'll probably see another one. That might completely debunk the one I just saw. I mean, a lot of my earlier videos, I probably would say I completely contradicted a lot of stuff I said earlier in my videos I did 4 or 5 years ago, because I didn't see it in that way. Now, I leave that stuff up because instead of taking it down going, oh, that's not correct anymore, because it's not like it's not right. In the frequency I was in, that made sense. And it did. It was correct in that sense. But now I can see it from a different place. But I keep it up because someone in that frequency of the video, whatever the frequency I was in when I did that video, is going to really resonate with that answer. And it's going to unlock something else for someone else. Or someone's going to watch that video that I would now look back at and go, that's 1/10 of what I could see now. If they're in a totally locked up about something or shut down about something, that just might open them up a little bit. Whereas if they watch my later stuff, which seems pretty out there, they wouldn't be ready for that yet. I know a lot of people that I'll listen to and I'll recommend it to people, but they're not ready for that yet. They're not ready for those people, in a sense. And it's not that they're not ready, it's more that it's too much. It's too much mind-blowing. I don't want to blow my mind yet. I'm just going to open it up a little bit. Because consciousness does blow everything up. It completely blows the mind open. It doesn't leave much for, what's the wording? I want to use her. It just doesn't leave a lot to chance in a sense. You know, it just blows everything up. There's no coincidences. You know, if you think something's a coincidence, it's just because our human mind can't get to the answer of why did it have to happen that way? Why did it happen that way? Boy, that's weird. Boy, it's weird I keep seeing the same person and I've never seen this person before and now I've seen this person for the last, you know, few months nonstop. Boy, that's strange. Wonder why that's happening. What a coincidence that is. Not a coincidence. It's possible there could be a reality with that person, but the reality with that person isn't lined up yet. So anytime you're around a person, you're exchanging energetically different information about that reality. Can we have this reality now? Let's energetically discuss this. You might never speak to the person. It's kind of like the cosmic dance. People call it the cosmic dance. You're just kind of dancing around each other to see, can we have this reality now? Nah, I'll see you in a few months. Not going to work yet. But when we're not in a conscious space to see that, all these things still play out. We just don't have the consciousness to see them. We don't have the consciousness to comprehend them. We don't have the consciousness to really feel them. So we go from a very limited view of what's going on. You know, so if we're from a limited view, we're going to have limited answers, and limited answers feel limited. That's why at the end of the day, we're never satisfied with them. We're never satisfied with anything long term. We might be, like I said, we might be satisfied in the moment, but when the chips get down again and we look back at that one answer we got, we won't be happy with it anymore. Because it's not the real one. So, all right, I'm going to open up my chat and see if I have anything. And I can go from there. Okay, it's quiet today. It's quiet for Tuesday. Usually Tuesday is very, very busy on my chat. Okay, so when we feel that disconnection, when we feel that, the big thing about when you start expanding your consciousness is you're going to start to really feel when the answer is not right. It doesn't feel right to you. I would say maybe it doesn't feel real, but it doesn't hit on what you thought it was going to hit on. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Why does that not ring true in a sense? Those are very big movements in our consciousness, so we can kind of start to feel that. Before then, we're kind of stuck in this human loop where we will hear something. We might go back later and say, yeah, I knew better, or yeah, it didn't feel right, but that's later. You know, normally that's not right away. That's hindsight, because in hindsight, our frequency is different. Our frequency is different 2 months later than it was in that moment when we went down that path because of what somebody said, right? Our frequency is going to be different later on. And the higher our frequency gets, the more we're going to start to see that stuff more in the moment, and it won't be that delayed response. You know, we're going to feel that that's not the whole truth, you know? And I don't even really like the word truth, because that's going to change in every dimension too. But it's just not going to feel like that's not going to resonate with you anymore. But when you're in your human consciousness, it feels like it, how am I going to put this? When we're in our human consciousness, we don't pick up on it consciously, okay? You're going to pick up on it. You might pick up on it in different ways, but you don't realize what you're doing. So if someone says something, you might notice your head tilts one way or the other. I used to do this very early on. My head would tilt one way, my head would tilt the other way, and I would just be tilting my head. I'm like, why am I tilting my head? Because you're trying to hone in on a different frequency. Whatever they're saying to you does not match what energetically is coming off of that statement. What energetically is, what else is going on there? What's not being said? You know, what answer is not being given? So you start to tilt your head a little bit. That's one sheer sign you're picking up on something else. Even if you don't, you're not doing it consciously. You're always going to be doing certain things. People would talk about body language, right? A human thing was body language. Look at someone's body language. That'll tell you everything. And to an extent, from a human perspective, they look at it as it's showing this, it's showing that. If you look at it from a more conscious perspective, or from an aspect that's not your human, body language takes on a different perspective. It's going to take on a whole different meaning to you. It's more your body language and not someone else's you want to pay attention to. A human wants to look at everybody else's body language and see, well, what is that saying to me? Look at yours. That's what's more important than somebody else's body language. Your body language is much more important because you're going to be doing certain things. You know, you're going to be giving yourself subtle clues that you're not going to pick up on. But now, once you open up to knowing what to look for and what you're doing, you're going to start to be able to see all these things you're doing that start to make a little more sense from an energetic perspective. Right? A lot of people say when you cross your arms, so that means you're closed off, or that means, you know, that means that you're not open. Now, I would say if I'm in a different consciousness, I'm going to look at that body language. If I'm doing that body language, I'm going to pay a little bit of attention to when I'm doing that. And I'm going to try to flip that around. Like, why am I doing that? Am I closed off because I'm closed off? Do I not like what's going on with me in that sense? It's not about the other person. It's just about you. You know, when I say it's a closed off, I don't know if I would say it's closed off, as I would say there's something that's not aligned here. Right? There's something that's not aligned here. My body is saying no. Okay? My energy is saying no, and I'm not sure why. Should it be saying no? Or is it something, do I have something going on here that is kind of projecting that? I would also, I think I used this one before, when you puff yourself up and get bigger. You know, when you puff yourself up and get bigger, physically, like a lot of people say, oh, you put your hands on your hips, and these are all these ways people get bigger. You spreading out. You know, you go sit down somewhere, I'm spreading out all over the place. People would not pay much attention to that. I pay more attention to it energetically because when I'm spreading out, it means I energetically feel small, so I'm trying to physically make myself bigger. So why am I energetically feeling small right now? What's going on here? There are little things we're going to show ourselves. There's little things we're going to kind of tip ourselves off to as we go through our journey that we're going to start to see our tells, right? And it's not about the other person. Don't worry about what they're doing. Unless you really got yourself under complete mastery, we don't need to worry about what anybody else is doing. That's what humans do. Humans worry about what everybody else is doing. And they're not conscious of what they're doing. But they don't want to be, so we're going to worry about everybody else. You know, we're kind of going to loop back around to how we started this. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. That is not our concern. They all have higher aspects of themselves. They all have their own journey they're going on. Doesn't mean shit what anybody else is doing. What are you doing in certain situations? What are you trying to tell yourself? I'm telling you, the head tilt is going to be massive when you start noticing yourself do it. And noticing who you're doing it around. That was really big for me when I started to kind of put that together, that I was honing in on a different frequency than what was going on. What a physical human perspective would look at that and say, this is what's going on. I was picking up on something else going on. Now, for me, because I was very clairaudient, I could tilt my head and I could hear the other stories. But in the very, very, very beginning, when I would just be doing that, I wouldn't even know what I was doing. Now, for me, it might be a little different than somebody else because you might not be able to hear it the way I hear it. You might just see it, or you just might know, or you might not even know right now. You just might be in that phase where I'm tilting my head. I feel like something's a little bit off. Something's a little bit off here, and I don't know what it is. I'm just going to put a pin in that, and I'm going to revisit this later when this reality, and to see how this reality starts to unfold for me. Because I'm definitely kind of sensing there's other things going on here. You know, there's other things going on here that don't make a lot of sense. And that's what I kind of want to hone in on later. So when you start looking for an answer, or start looking at why we're never satisfied, stop settling for one answer. Human's going to settle for one answer, and if it gets what it wants, it's going to say, okay, that's right. That would be the correct answer, because that's what yielded me the most of what I thought I wanted. We got to go deeper than that to see, is that the only answer? You know, is that all that's going on here? Is that the only answer? Why is that answer setting okay with me? It's because I'm getting something out of it. What am I getting out of it? Why do I feel like that's so important? We get attached to the answer, because of what we're getting out of it. Your human's always going to want what it gets out of it, okay? It's always going to want to cling to something when it's getting the most out of it. It's nature, okay? It's just what it does. It doesn't know another way. I want to say it doesn't know another way. It just doesn't know another way. That's what it does. So we can't beat our human up. A lot of people will say we can like transcend the human, or we won't be human anymore. We always have a human aspect. We just don't listen to it and let it make choices. It's like a little 3-year-old child screaming in the background going, no, I don't want to do it that way. I want to go do it this way. I want my way. I don't want that way. I don't want the higher line way. I want the human way. And that's really what it becomes. It becomes kind of like background noise. But we start to be able to discern that. And when we flip into our human aspect and we are being very rigid about something. Now, the more conscious you become, the more you expand your consciousness, we are going to be very rigid about one thing, in a sense, and one thing only. And that is what we allow into our field and the level of consciousness the people in our field are operating from. Creating realities that are not soul aligned. There are some things you're going to be rigid about, but there's no reason for that, because we get to a point where we can't build the stuff that's not going to last anymore, because we've gone through years of cleaning up shit that wasn't going to last. We're trying to rearrange it 1,500 times, painting the walls on the room that we're going to eventually have to move out of 100 times because we didn't want to have to move out of the room. So we're trying to change it, making it look like it's something else, trying to convince ourselves we can keep stuff we can't keep, because it was created under human realities. I've said many times that everything that I had when I started, completely gone. People, all of it gone. Completely gone. Like, it's a complete redo. It's a complete reset of a lot of your whole life, and you're now you're going to build it a different way. And when you start to build it a different way, then we have to kind of know how we're going to do that. How am I going to do my building blocks a different way? How am I going to make the soul align? What does that even mean? And it takes us a while to learn how to do that, because it's not the way our human body was programmed. So until you clear a lot of programming in the human body, you're not going to be able to kind of know what that means. That's why it can take us a while. We go through a lot of realities that we think we're good on. We think we don't have an agenda on. We think we're kind of pure on, and then we're not, right? We're not. At the end of the day, we're like, oh, well, I thought I was good there, but I'm not. I'm a little tainted there. I'm not as good as I thought I was. Oh, that sucks. I've got a little stuff going on there. And we'll go through that a lot, repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. So we can't really beat ourselves up about that. But after we've gone through it enough, it kind of goes back to, once you're conscious enough to see it, then what are we going to do about it? We just don't do that anymore. So there will be some things that you will be very strict on. You'll have some very strict policies about, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to have anything to do with that. That's not happening anymore. You're going to be very strict on what you do. So I think that's a good place to end today. So hopefully this will assist, and we will be back. I don't know if I'll be back on Saturday. Right now I'm going to keep it up. I might be back. Depends. I'm going to travel a little bit this week, so we'll see how that goes. But okay.